There are places in this world where the past does not feel past at all. It lingers in the cold spots of a room, in the whisper of the wind through broken arches, and in the stories that refuse to die. On the banks of the River Dee in Scotland, where the mist hangs low over the water, stand the ruins of a Templar chapel. For centuries, locals have spoken of a woman's ghost, weeping over a knight's tomb, a phantom knight seen riding over the nearby hills, and a deep scar in the earth, left by a bolt of lightning that descended from a clear sky to deliver a terrible justice. This is not just a ghost story. It is an echo of a great and terrible fire that consumed one of the most powerful orders the world has ever known, and in doing so, ensured they would never truly die. Welcome, fellow seekers of shadowed history, to the Candlelight Historian. Tonight, we are not exploring the history you find in textbooks. We are venturing into the far more powerful realm of folk memory. We will trace the story of the Knights Templar, not their rise and fall, but their second life, the life that began after they were declared heretics, their leaders burned, and their name erased from the official record. Because when history was finished with the Templars, the people were not. Their story retreated from the palaces of kings into the fireside tales of rural communities, where it curdled into legends of ghosts, curses, and secrets that still haunt us to this day. So, draw the curtains, light a candle, and let us begin. The Curse from the Flames. To understand the ghost, you must first understand the death. For nearly 200 years, the Knights Templar were a pillar of Christendom. They were warrior monks, sworn to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land. They were also brilliant innovators who created a system of international banking, making them wealthier and more powerful than kings. They answered to no one on earth but the Pope himself. But their power made them a target. By the early 14th century, King Philip IV of France was deeply in debt to the order. He was a ruthless man who saw the Templars not as holy warriors, but as an obstacle and an opportunity. The blow came with shocking speed. At dawn on Friday, October 13th, 1307, the king's men struck across France, arresting every Templar they could find. The charges were a catalogue of horrors designed to shock and appall: denying Christ, spitting on the cross, worshipping a demonic head, and institutional sodomy. These confessions were extracted through brutal, systematic torture. Under pressure from the French king, Pope Clement V, a man in the king's shadow, eventually buckled. In 1312, he issued a papal bull, Vox in Excelso, which declared that the Order of the Knights Templar, for the good of the Church, was to be dissolved forever. The final act of this tragedy took place 2 years later on an island in the River Seine in Paris. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Order, was to be burned at the stake as a relapsed heretic. And it is from these flames that the first and most powerful Templar legend was born. As the fire consumed him, de Molay is said to have raised his voice one last time, not in a plea for mercy, but to deliver a terrible curse. He summoned his persecutors to join him before the judgment of God. "Pope Clement, King Philip," he cried, "within a year, I summon you to God's tribunal." For the people of medieval Europe, what happened next was nothing short of divine proof. The curse was fulfilled with chilling precision. Pope Clement died in agony just over a month later. King Philip suffered a stroke while hunting and was dead before the year was out. His bloodline would soon wither and die, plunging France into a century of war. This was the moment the Templars passed from history into legend. They were no longer just victims of a greedy king. They were martyrs, vindicated by God himself. The Grand Master's curse was the key that unlocked the door to every ghost story and hidden treasure legend that would follow. It turned a political crime into a supernatural epic. The Haunted Stones of Britain. When the order was dissolved, its soul was extinguished, but its body remained. Across Europe, and especially in Britain, the Templars left behind a vast physical legacy, hundreds of churches, farms, and preceptories. These empty stones became anchors for folk memory, their walls absorbing the stories of later generations. In Britain, the persecution was less severe than in France, but the end was just as final. The knights were arrested, their lands seized, and their world vanished overnight. And in the silence that followed, the whispers began. Perhaps the most tragic of these tales comes from the former preceptory at Mary Coulter in Scotland. The legend tells of a Templar knight named Godfrey Wedderburn. During the Crusades, Godfrey was gravely wounded and left for dead. He was found and secretly nursed back to health by a beautiful Saracen noblewoman, the daughter of the very chief he had been fighting. Cast out by her own people for helping an enemy, she had nowhere to go. Bound by honor, Godfrey brought her back with him to the preceptory at Mary Coulter. His brothers, sworn to chastity, were scandalized. The commander of the house refused to believe their relationship was innocent and, in a flagrant breach of Templar law, condemned Godfrey to die by his own hand. As his brethren watched, Godfrey declared his innocence one last time and plunged a dagger into his heart. At that moment, the Saracen woman burst into the clearing. Mad with grief, she snatched the bloody dagger, uttered a curse upon the commander, and then took her own life. As her curse echoed through the night, a bolt of lightning descended from a clear sky, striking the commander dead and blasting a deep scar into the earth, a place still known today as the Thunder Hole. Today, the ghosts of the tragic lovers are said to wander the grounds, forever bound to the place of their unjust demise. It is a perfect piece of Gothic romance, and it shows how these ancient Templar sites became magnets for later stories. The Templar connection provides a pre-existing layer of mystery and tragedy, making it fertile ground for a story of forbidden love and supernatural vengeance to take root. And they are not alone. In Wiltshire, the dark figure of a Templar knight is said to move through the church where his effigy lies. In Bristol, the fire station is built over an old Templar temple and has been the site of numerous reports of ghostly knights, accompanied by the faint, disembodied sound of Gregorian chanting. The stones remember, even when history tries to forget. The riddle beneath the earth. If the ghosts of Mary Coulter show how folklore can embellish a known history, other sites show how it can rush to fill a complete vacuum. In the market town of Royston, in Hertfordshire, England, workmen made a startling discovery in August of 1742. Buried beneath a heavy millstone, they found a shaft leading down into the chalk bedrock. At the bottom was a man-made bell-shaped chamber, its walls covered in a bizarre and extensive collection of crude carvings. The images are a strange mix. There are clear depictions of the crucifixion, of St. Christopher, and St. Catherine. But alongside them are armored knights, secular figures, and other symbols whose meanings are lost to time. No records of the cave's creation exist. Its origin and purpose are a complete mystery. And into this void of knowledge stepped the most compelling local mystery available, the Knights Templar. The nearby town of Baldock was founded by the Templars and served as their English headquarters for a time. The theory quickly arose that Royston Cave was a secret Templar oratory, a place where they could practice their clandestine rites away from prying eyes. The evidence, however, is ambiguous. While some see two figures carved close together as the classic Templar symbol of two knights on one horse, the image is damaged and has been repaired. Historians have pointed out that the style of armor worn by the carved knights appears to be from a century after the Templars were suppressed. Despite this, the Templar theory remains overwhelmingly popular. Royston Cave perfectly illustrates how legends form. The human mind abhors a vacuum. In the absence of a clear historical explanation, the popular imagination has connected the cave to the most famous and secretive group known to have been in the area. The carvings are just specific enough to fuel the theory, but just vague enough that they cannot disprove it. The less we truly know about a place like Royston Cave, the more easily it can be claimed by a powerful and evocative legend. The Phantom Treasure. The idea of secret meetings in hidden caves leads us to an even grander set of legends, the belief that something more tangible than the Order's spirit survived their fall. Their immense treasure, not just gold and jewels, but sacred relics of unimaginable power, the Ark of the Covenant, the mummified head of Christ, or even the Holy Grail itself. The historical reality is that the Templars' wealth was not a single hoard, but a sophisticated financial system based on land, property, and loans. When King Philip seized their holdings, he was frustrated to find far less cash than he expected. He didn't understand that the real treasure was in the paperwork, in the debts owed to the Order, the world's first international bankers. But this reality is far less compelling than the legend. The popular imagination required a more romantic explanation, and a powerful narrative soon emerged. One story tells that on the eve of the arrests, the Templar fleet, some say as many as 18 ships, slipped out of the French port of La Rochelle under the cover of darkness, carrying the true treasure to safety. Another speaks of knights escaping Paris in hay carts, their precious cargo hidden beneath the straw, bound for the safety of Switzerland. These escape narratives have fueled treasure hunts for centuries. The most famous is the Oak Island Mystery in Nova Scotia, Canada. Since the 18th century, people have been obsessed with a deep, booby-trapped shaft known as the Money Pit. A dark curse is even said to protect it, claiming that 7 men must die before the treasure can be found. One of the most prominent theories is that the escaped Templar fleet crossed the Atlantic and buried their sacred relics deep within the island, safe from their European enemies. More recently, a similar theory has been proposed in the heart of England. A historian has argued that the Templar hoard is hidden beneath Sinai Park House in Staffordshire. Geologists claim the house sits atop natural caverns as vast as Westminster Abbey, a perfect hiding place. The property has links to the family of a Templar founder, and most tellingly, the local abbey, which had shown no interest in the site for centuries, suddenly took control of it right after the Templars were suppressed, as if they were acting as secret guardians. These persistent treasure hunts reveal something deeper. The physical treasure is a metaphor for the Templars' lost power. The medieval mind could not accept that such an immense concentration of wealth and divine favor could simply be wiped out. It had to have been preserved, hidden away. The quest for the treasure is a quest to recover that lost golden age, a belief that what was lost is not gone forever, but is merely waiting to be found. The secret continuations. If the treasure was hidden, what if the Order itself was as well? This is the most ambitious Templar legend of all, that they never truly disappeared, but simply went underground, continuing their work in secret. This idea began not in history, but in fiction. In the early 13th century, a German poet named Wolfram von Eschenbach wrote an epic romance called Parzival. In it, he described the Holy Grail as being guarded by a chaste order of holy warriors called the Templars. To a medieval audience, the association was unmistakable. For the first time, the real-world reputation of the Templars was fused with the mystical allure of the Grail quest. This fictional link proved too compelling to be forgotten. Centuries later, Victorian writers like Sir Walter Scott, in his novel Ivanhoe, reshaped the Templar myth again. His Templar villain, Brian de Bois-Guilbert, was proud, fanatical, and deeply secretive, a master of dark Eastern mystique. Scott's portrayal reinforced the popular image of the Order as keepers of profound and dangerous secrets, making them the perfect candidates to be guardians of Christianity's greatest mystery. This idea of a secret survival was given new life in the 18th century by the burgeoning Society of Freemasons. In a famous speech in 1737, a Scottish exile in Paris named Andrew Michael Ramsay claimed that Freemasonry's origins lay not with humble stonemasons, but with the chivalric orders of the Crusades. A few years later, a German baron named Karl von Hund took this idea and ran with it. He founded a new branch of Freemasonry called the Rite of Strict Observance, claiming it was the direct, uninterrupted continuation of the original Knights Templar, and that he received his authority from mysterious, unknown superiors. There is no verifiable historical link between the medieval Templars and the Freemasons. It is what historians call an invented tradition. For a new movement, claiming descent from the Templars was a way to manufacture an ancient and noble lineage. The Templars provided the perfect symbolic ancestors, historical, secretive, and with a compelling story of martyrdom. And yet, the idea of a Templar survival is not entirely a myth. In Portugal, the king skillfully negotiated with the Pope. Instead of destroying the order, he simply renamed it. In 1319, the Portuguese Templars, their properties, and their traditions were transferred into the new military order of Christ. This new order would go on to fund Portugal's Age of Discovery, with figures like Henry the Navigator serving as its Grand Master. A similar process happened in Spain with the creation of the Order of Montesa. In these places, the Templars didn't need to survive in secret, because in a very real sense, they survived in plain sight under a new name. Why the Templars still haunt us. The story of the Knights Templar in folk memory is a perfect storm. It begins with a historical reality so dramatic and unjust that it practically demands a legendary explanation. The sudden fall from grace, the greedy king, the weak pope, and the curse from the flames that seemingly came true. It is a narrative more powerful than any fiction. This dramatic end left behind a haunted landscape. The physical shells of the Templars' power, their churches and preceptories, remained silent witnesses scattered across Europe. These stones became magnets for folklore, their tragic history providing a somber backdrop for tales of phantom knights, star-crossed lovers, and lingering curses. At the same time, the void left by their disappearance was filled by even grander myths. The popular imagination could not accept that so much wealth, power, and knowledge was simply lost. It had to be hidden. This gave rise to the enduring legends of a lost treasure, a sacred grail, and a secret continuation through esoteric societies. These stories are not just about adventure. They are about the hope that what was lost can be found, that great wisdom is not gone forever, but is merely waiting for the worthy to rediscover it. The historical Knights Templar are long gone, their bones turned to dust. But their story, reimagined, embellished, and passed down through 7 centuries of folklore, remains a potent and unquiet ghost in the corridors of history. It persists because it taps into our most fundamental fascinations, with justice for the wronged, with the allure of secrets, and with the hope that true power can never really be destroyed. The candle of their history was snuffed out, but the shadow it casts is long indeed. Thank you for joining us by the candlelight. If you wish to explore more shadowed corners of the past, Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. Share your own local legends in the comments below. We would love to hear them. Until the next shadowed tale, farewell.